at how Esau has dealt with his money systems against the law and how it's doomed to fail perpetually. It is not practical. It is not spiritual in use. Okay? When you go to Proverbs, the book Proverbs 20, okay, verse 23, it says, diverse weights are an abomination to the Lord, and a false balance is not good. Okay? So when the 2008 collapse happened and they started to do quantitative easing, what's known as QI1, QI2, basically the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank held by elite Edomites, how did they give out this money? What was the process? They started to create a ridiculous false balance in the world by just printing money and giving it to people that didn't deserve it. Started to devalue and overvalue certain things, creating diverse weights, meaning a company that really was the weight of a feather, they valued it as the weight of a brick. They corrupted the systems with debt, with usury. If somebody can put up that in the book in Habakkuk where it talks about thick clay. They use debt to control the markets. So what we want to talk about is, how does the Federal Reserve interest rates relate to diverse weights and a false balance that's spiraling out of control? Because it is not practical. It is not the way that the law would state for things to be done. Okay? That's what's going on in the earth. Okay? Is a false balance. And it's literally, as we see the markets teeter-tottering, the more that this is going on, is going to make it worse and worse and worse. Okay? I see everybody putting con on there. So y'all flowing with me. Y'all flowing with me. Good. All right. So now what I want to talk about real quick is how they did quantitative easing. And if y'all stay with us, some of y'all who can stay on. This is going to be an algo, so you can always come back later. Corporate, the bond market. The bond market. What is a bond? A bond is basically a debt note. Okay, so what the Federal Reserve did was started to buy up mortgage bonds, corporate bonds. So let's say Company A. Company A is over leveraged in the market. They're about to go bankrupt. The Fed says, hey, we got you, bro. We're going to just print you out $50 million. All right. But what that means is it's going to be done in a bond. So the corporation says, thank you. We are going to give you a corporate bond, a corporate A bond. So that bond has an interest rate attached to it. So the Fed buys these bonds from this corporation. They give that corporation $50 million. Now the government, or the Fed, not the government, but the Fed has a $50 million corporate bond that's going to pay, let's say, 10% a year on that bond. So Corporation A will now issue out $5 million. That's 10%. Okay, that's 10% of 50 million. They will issue out $5 million. Let's say the bond was a 10-year bond. So it's a 10-year bond at 10% interest rate. So you have a $50 million bond that's going to be held by the Fed for 10 years at 10% at a 10% interest rate. So that means that every year this corporation will have to issue out $5 million of their earnings year by year to the Fed, right? And at the end of the 10 years, that Corporation A will issue back the Fed their $50 million, right? And the Fed will have to, sell that bond back and get the money, right? But what happens if that corporation don't have that money? They default. So basically, it's a debt loan that they're giving out. So all this money that the Fed has been giving these banks, these different corporations, they've been giving them debt bonds. They've been saying, hey, here you go. Here you go, here you go, here you go. And so there's tons of these banks and these corporations that really ain't got it. They've been issued out this debt. They've been issued out this cash that they cannot pay back. And when you raise interest rates, the new bonds that come out, they have a better interest rate now. So now that bond that was 10%, there's like just recently, the Fed rose interest rates by 75 points, by 0.75%. So now let's just say you had a 10% interest rate on your bond. Now the new bonds that are being issued out are 11%. So that's even more money that would have to be issued out. Would you want a 10% bond or would you want an 11% bond? People are going to want the 11% bond. They're not going to want to buy that 10% bond. Why would I want that when I can get a better interest rate? So people are going to try to sell off these old 10% bonds to get the new bonds. Well, nobody wants them. So there's going to be a massive sell-off of these bonds and a crash in the bond market as people try to relinquish these debt holdings. Well, these corporations are not going to be able to pay it back. It's a diverse weight. It's a false balance that's going on. You gave out funny money, free money that people really didn't have the credit to pay. So you're going to literally create a frenzy in the market. Okay. And that's going to leak into the exact agenda that the Fed wants. So over the course of these last 10, 15 years, they've ramped it up. The Fed has just been buying bonds, basically buying these banks and these corporations by the pound, setting them up for the okie doke, knowing that when they raise interest rates, that these bonds will have less value in the market and these corporations and banks will not be able to pay. So I'm going to play one clip to kind of show or talk about this a little bit. All right, let's go to class. And the scriptures say, don't do that shit. That's really what's interesting. The scriptures say, don't do that, bro. You're going to hurt yourself if you do that. Don't do that. That's not how a kingdom should be ran. When you read Proverbs, when you read Ecclesiastes, it's telling you, King Solomon is telling you, this is how to run a good kingdom. You got a point out?
Yeah, I was going to say, before you move, I just wanted to add to that,
Yes.
what they were doing as well. What these companies were doing as well, that money that they were receiving from the central banks and also from these other lenders.
Oh, yeah, they made it even worse. Yes, right. Good point.
It was nefarious because what they would do is, brothers should know what stocks are, right? So when you got stocks and shares, you're entitled to a percentage of the company's profits, right? So what these companies were doing is, a lot of people value a company based upon their share price or based upon the return that is given to a particular share. So they would take this cheap money that they were getting from the central bank and from other lenders while the interest rates were low, and they were buying their own stocks. It's called instead of holding the money in cash, they would prefer to buy their own stock. So imagine that this company is a failing company. They've received money, cash, instead of actually spending that cash to make the company better, or invest in it to increase the profitability of the company. They took the money and bought their own stocks. So what that does is it increases the price of your stocks. So you look on the stock market chart, you're like, wow, this company's going up in price. Yeah. So then more people want to buy it because that's human psychology. When you see something going up, you buy it because you think you're going to profit, right? Then on top of that, right, now that the company owns more stocks, it's kind of artificially increasing the payout you get per stock, which is another metric that people look at. So this is why you see the stock market has been going through the roof. But a lot of these companies that have been increasing over the last 2-3 years are zombie companies. The fundamentals of the companies is not there. They are not making any money. Yeah, Tesla doesn't even make as much money as it's making. It's all fraud, like the brother's saying. It's like, it's a lie. And eventually that lie is going to be exposed and someone's going to get left holding the bag they don't want to hold.
Hmm.
But anyway, go on. I know he's gonna go into it on these, but it's
That's right.
a
That's
lot
right.
of wickedness, man.
That's it. But they make it so convoluted that just the everyday person, the layman person, doesn't understand what's going on. They don't understand. The brother Adawan Ratazab 2 put Deuteronomy 25:14, thou shalt not have in thine house diverse measures, a great and a small. It says, and you must use full and honest measures. If somebody can get the Hebrew word for diverse and put it in the comment board, that'd be much appreciated. All right. All right.
Yeah, and like the brother's saying, yeah, that law, because I remember going back in Montserrat, we used to have them still. Because we was a bit in the stone age with certain things. You used to have, if you went to a farmer or to the farmer's market and you wanted to buy, some potatoes or whatever, they used to have the weights there. And, there'll be a weight that represented a pound, and there'll be a weight that represented 2 pounds. And you'll put the weight on one side and the potatoes on the other side, and you balance it, right? And so that's how you do your transactions. But there's a principle there. There's an underlying principle which is in that law, meaning you trade the truthfully. If you're gonna sell someone something, the scriptures tell you that defraud not thy neighbor. If you sell someone something, you're supposed to sell them the truth. If the house is got mold all in it, you're supposed to tell them. You're not supposed to paint over it and sell them a
Mhm.
moldy house. Do you know what I mean? These are the principles of the law. But we live in a kingdom where that's what basically happens. And then the people who are supposed to be checking these things, like these Moody's and all these
Mhm.
companies that are set up to make
Standard and
sure that,
Poor, Moody.
yeah,
Mhm.
they're part of the scam too.
Yep.
They're rating these companies and these higher than what they're supposed to be. So it's this
Yep.
kingdom is just wicked, man.
Kind. Kind. We're gonna get to some of these good scriptures. I actually brothers is posting scriptures that I had pulled up. We're gonna get to those, but I'm gonna play this clip real quick, just to get the party started.
Hey everyone, I'm Mr. Willis, and this is your macro minute on bond prices and interest rates. Bond prices and interest rates have an inverse relationship. This means that as interest rates rise in the economy, bond prices will decrease, and as interest rates fall in the economy, bond prices will increase.
So now we're in a state where they're raising interest rates, so bond prices are going to be hurt, and this is purposeful. They're saying it's to stave off inflation, but really it's to suck up all the wealth of the people who have bad credit. And you know who has bad credit? Everybody.
The price of a bond refers to the principal or the face value of a bond. For example, if you purchase a corporate bond for $10,000, the $10,000 you paid to purchase the bond is the price of the bond. It represents the money you lent to the corporation who issued the bond. And since the $10,000 principal will be paid back when the bond becomes mature, it also indicates what the bond is worth to the bond holder. So why are bond prices and interest rates inverse? When an investor buys a bond, the issuer of the bond agrees to pay the investor an interest rate to borrow their money. This can affect the investor's motivation to buy the bond. For example, let's assume that when you purchased the $10,000 corporate bond, the firm that sold you the bond agreed to pay you 10% annually over the life.
Right. So in this example, they're using Apple. So you got a $10,000 Apple bond, and they agree to pay you 10% per year for 10 years. Okay. That's a corporate Apple, for example, corporate bond. Understand this. People who, if you got like $4 or $5 million, let's say you was a ball player, this is what your financial advisor is going to set you up to do. I know this because I know millionaires who do this. They hit a lick, $4 million. They take a large portion of it. Let's say they take $2 million of it and they put it into the bond market because that's supposed to be safe. They diversify it over different type of bonds. And let's say with the different bonds they got, they average 8%. So if you got $2 million worth of bonds in this 10-year average, and you're getting about 8%, you're getting about $160,000 a year off your bonds. You live off of that. You never touch your money. You never touch your money. You only live off the interest you're receiving. And your extra interest that you don't spend, you put it and you reinvest. And so your bond, how much you get in interest always says you compound it. Okay, that's how wealthy people live. They live off debt. They don't live off of the actual money that they hold. They live off the interest that they accumulate from letting people borrow their money, the debt that they lend out to people. This is how rich people get it. Okay.
Life of the bond. That interest rate is locked in and will not change, which means you earn $1,000 in interest each year, guaranteed. Now assume that interest rates rise to 15% in the economy. All new bonds issued in the bond market will instantly earn investors more profit, making the 10% interest on your bond less attractive. As a result, when you try to sell your bond, investors will walk away and buy a bond at the new higher interest rate. The only way that you can sell your bond is by lowering the price to adjust for the difference in interest rates. As a result, the price of your bond will decrease to a discounted principal that is below the original $10,000 price. But
does that make sense? So now let's say they raise interest rates in the middle of your 10 years. So let's say you 5 years in or 8 years in to getting this 10%, and interest rates go up, and now they got now there's 15% bonds being issued out. Well, when this bond matures, ain't nobody gonna want to buy that shit. So in order for you to get rid of this $10,000 bond, you're gonna have to sell this at a premium. You're gonna have to sell this cheaper than what you bought it at. So you put up 10,000 now, just to get it off your hands and get your money back, your principal back, you might sell it for 8,000. You might sell it for 7. You just want to get it. You just want to get rid of it. Okay. Let me know. Say con if this makes sense. There's going to be a frenzy of this happening in the market. This is trillions of dollars. I want y'all to understand this. Trillions, nigga. If the Fed chooses to sell off these bonds, through, finished, done. These private corporations are going to sell their souls to the elite. They got you.
what if instead of rising to 15%, interest rates fall to 5% in the economy? All new bonds issued in the bond market will instantly earn investors less profit, making the 10% interest on your bond more attractive. As a result, if you try to sell your bond, investors will be eager to buy it because your bond has a higher interest rate than any new bonds being issued. To take advantage of the elevated value of your bond, you'll adjust the principal for the difference in interest rates. As a result, the price of your bond will increase to a higher principal above the original $10,000 price. It comes down to simple supply and demand. When interest rates rise, your bond earns less profits at its fixed interest rate, which makes it less valuable and less demanded, which decreases its price. When interest rates fall, your bond earns more profit at its fixed interest rate, which makes it more valuable and more demanded, which increases its price. Thank you so much for watching. That's bond prices and interest rates.
Boom. So what we're going to see is this is going to have to be adjusted in the market for supply and demand. It's going to be a ripple effect throughout the markets, and you got all types of bonds from corporate to government bonds to mortgage housing, mortgage security bonds, and within the market you have the derivative market of speculation on what's going to happen in each different industry. So it's just all types of diverse measures and weights and basically gambling going on within the stock market. Most High said, don't do that. Proverbs 28:8 says, he that by usury, all right, interest, debt, and unjust gain, he that by usury and unjust gain increaseth his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. Okay? And so all of these things are going to lead to a frenzy. It's going to lead into a frenzy, but the elite want this financial chaos. They want to take advantage of this financial chaos and people not being able to pay back their debts, ridiculous sell-offs, okay? Because they're going to own these corporations and be able to create new stipulations out of that chaos. All right, so back in 2008, 2009, when all of these different companies that was holding all these mortgage-backed securities failed, what do you think happened? They were getting bought up by the bigger people that had more cash on hand. So there was a shrinkage of diversity in the market. Well, they're going to do that again. They don't want it to be 1,000 different companies that are able to control the market. They're going to shrink it down even more. There's going to be, out of the 1,000, maybe 800 of them are going to fail. So the 200 that still got capital and money, they're going to buy them out and own them. Did you have a point, Ricari Kwam?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking of that Tekken, and you got certain of these futuristic games, and what do they show you? There's like one or two companies in the world, like, you know what I mean? But that's how it really is. Ultimately, when you go behind the scenes with BlackRock and all these guys, ultimately it's just really there is only about 4 or 5 different companies in the world, these massive conglomerates. But here in the UK, they said within the next 2-3 months, about 40% of small businesses are about to go out of business. So this thing is it's all done on purpose, man. The little man, mom and pops, all them guys are gonna be destroyed, and everything's gonna go to Amazon, Apple, and the household corporations that we know and love. So it is.
That's right. That's right.
They're the government, because these companies have been in bed with the government from the very beginning. They are the government. Amazon, Walmart, all these big, massive corporations. It's no difference. They are the government. Fascism.
All right. So I'm gonna read this article real quick. This is from Reuters back in February the 10th of 2022. It says, just stop. Investors want the Fed to quit buying bonds now, because as the Fed buys bonds and props up these corporations and banks, it makes them overvalued in the market, which creates what? It's just pumping the market full of more dollars. It's creating rampant inflation. And because of the pandemic and them just ridiculously flooding the market with more and more corporate debt or bonds, now we're seeing this inflation. You're seeing it at the gas pump. You're seeing it in your electricity bill, your energy bills. You're seeing it with prices of goods and services. And then they're doing other things to make it even worse with the supply chain. Okay, so let me read this. It says, the U.S. Federal Reserve should stop buying bonds immediately to contain rampant inflation, a top investment manager at BlackRock said on Thursday, joining a chorus of Wall Street heavy hitters and investors who have been calling for swifter Fed action to contain rising prices. The U.S. consumer prices rose solidly in January, leading to the biggest annual increase in inflation in 40 years and fueling market expectations that the Fed may increase rates more aggressively than anticipated to cool the economy, which we just had the announcement that they did that now that we're here in June. As it seeks to contain inflation, the U.S. Central Bank also plans to reduce its nearly $9 trillion balance sheet, which grew in size during pandemic as the Fed bought bonds in the market to support the economy. After the pandemic triggered recession, the Fed was buying $120 billion worth in treasuries and mortgage-backed securities each month. Each month, bro, just printing off 120 billion. Here, you be all right. Just pay me back later. Pay me back later, player. While it has reduced that amount, it is still making purchases. At the latest meeting, the Fed said that beginning February, it would increase holdings of Treasury securities by at least $20 billion a month and mortgage-backed securities by at least $10 billion a month, and will bring those purchases to an end in early March. The Fed is still infusing the system with QE through the middle part of March. Okay? You see this? Referring to the quantitative easing, the Fed's bond buying program. So when you talk about quantitative easing, you're talking about the issuance of debt to corporations, banks, investment companies, insurance companies through bonds and securities. The Fed needs to react and address today's high levels of inflation and end QE now. Okay? Let's see. Inconsistent. We don't even have to go there. So hopefully this is all making sense and showing you how they've laden themselves with thick clay. I believe a brother had put it into the comment board of the Habakkuk chapter 2. This is how they've laden themselves with thick clay. All right, give me a con if this is making sense. I'm trying to go concise and hopefully this is not, I'm not going too heavy. Habakkuk 2:6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long? Okay. And to him that and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, the laden himself full of debt. These bond markets is how they're laden themselves, and all the other nations. Japan is doing it. China is doing it. The EU is doing it. All of those that are underneath this beast system are doing some type of system of quantitative easing and laden themselves with thick clay. Okay? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the funny thing about this situation is as they're raising interest rates, it's messing up the whole game, but it's not gonna stop inflation. In theory, it's supposed to slow down and control inflation, but there's still gonna be inflation. So guess what? They're gonna have to put it up some more. So it's just this thing's gonna get crazy, man.
It's about to get buck wild, and they wanted to get buck wild. That's why they did it. Because basically it creates a slave out of the private sector, meaning business owners. Okay? The government is known as the public sector. The corporations and businesses is known as the private sector. The private sector is now a slave to the Fed because they borrow so much money from the Fed over the course of the last 15 years. The borrower is subject to the lender. If somebody can put that on the comment board, it'd be much appreciated. The borrower is subject to the lender. Okay. Now, James 5:1, the brother of GMS Hawaii Bob put it. Shalom. I called you the other day because you had called me, bro. We got to chop it up later on this week, or maybe this weekend or something. James 5:1 says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. I mean, if these scriptures are not jumping off the page, I don't know what to tell you, bro. I don't know what to tell you, man. The Most High said, don't do that shit. We have a practical system of how to govern ourselves. And Esau, the so-called white man, decided to go completely opposite. And it's going to send the world into massive, massive chaos. Massive chaos. Okay? Now, did you have a point, Ak? I'm going to keep moving.
No, we can keep moving up.
All right. I'm going to keep moving with the next clip. Let me find it. Here we go. Hope y'all bros are staying with me. I'm actually I was going to skip, but the beginning part of this is juicy.
Underneath the glittery coverage of the stock market.
Stocks. 2021 still looks quite positive.
There's a whole other side to public companies.
Not for bonds,
Let me ask, the bond market.
It's not as sexy of a subject as stocks are. Just that shroud of mystery and mystique and complication over the bond market.
The corporate bond market, where companies can go to borrow cash. Now companies are facing the highest debt levels ever. More than 10.5 trillion.
Bro. Yeah, bro. This is March 2021. It's way more now. It's way more now, even since just March of last year. You got to remember that there was 120 billion a month of buying bonds. And they increased it. Every month, every quarter, they would increase how much they were buying. 10.5 trillion, bro. Come on now. They ain't got it. They don't have it. They can't pay the bonds back. These corporations don't got it. These banks, the biggest banks that you know, they don't got it. Okay? They through.
They're insolvent.
They're insolvent.
Which is going to lead to later on in the video, because that that leads into these bail-ins, man.
That's what we're gonna get to. Because basically they're being bailed out, so they're gonna make you bail in. Oh boy, it's funny.
$1 billion in debt.
The corporate bond market right now is kind of just hanging on by a very precarious string.
These debt levels were massive before the coronavirus pandemic. Super low interest rates left over from the 2008 financial crisis made it very easy to borrow money.
That the debt market could even lead to the next economic crisis.
We couldn't have predicted in 2018 that a global pandemic would cause the next recession. But the point is, corporate debt was reaching
We could have, because the scripture said, plague, famine, pestilence. Scripture said.
record levels then, and it's even bigger now.
You asked about corporate debt. Yeah, I'm just concerned if that's a bubble that you're watching. We do watch those things.
This after the Federal Reserve took extraordinary measures amid the pandemic-induced recession to buy into corporate bonds.
The high yield market is now at bubble levels, and this is not going to end well.
Some of the most influential companies are issuing these IOUs, and some of those are junk bond status, or in other words, the riskiest kind of bonds, like Kraft Heinz, Ford, and Macy's.
How long can we continue to do this run up in debt here? How long can we continue?
How long? That's in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. How long? If I was in church, I would say, and everybody say it with me, how long? Turn to your neighbor and tell them, how long?
You to live on red ink.
As of the fourth quarter of 2020, there is over $10,562 billion in U.S. corporate debt. Most of that is made up of bonds. So companies can issue stock to raise money and finance all their business streams. Or companies can borrow the money. And when you borrow money, you're indebted to someone somewhere for that cash. That leads corporations to issue bonds, corporate bonds.
With interest rates really low, it's very easy and accessible to issue bonds in today's market. If I had to put it in terms of analogy, it's like anyone looking to get a mortgage loan or refinance their really high interest rate loan and maybe refi to something lower.
When you buy a bond, you become the lender. You're basically saying, yep, company, I believe in you. Here's some money. Go make it happen. And that company says, thanks for believing in us. We'll throw in a little extra to make it worth your while. That's what finance folks call a coupon.
And you have to remember, you got to look at the U.S. government like a corporation. They are borrowing from the Fed just like all these other corporations are. The United States government is the Federal Reserve Bank is not the United States government. It is a privately owned banking system, financial institution. So the government borrows too. Okay?
So whatever you pay to buy the bond, which is called the principal, you'll get back eventually, plus that little extra. Those coupons are paid out to lenders over time, which depends on how long it takes the bond to mature. It could be in 1 year, 5 years, or even 30 years. It's kind of like a long game of Monopoly. Every time that bondholder passes go, they collect their coupon. That's why Wall Street calls this fixed income.
Just as consumers have FICO scores, companies also have scores themselves given by independent rating agencies.
All right. And so these independent rating agencies is something that Quan mentioned earlier. Yeah, y'all can go look this up independently, like Moody's, Standard & Poor. They give credit ratings to banks and financial institutions and corporations. Say, hey, this corporation, Apple is worth. They have this credit score. They can borrow this at this interest rate. This is what we think. Boom. So a lot of these corporations have been getting good, just like us. You could be, man, you can go to Keisha. She fixed credit. She been doing it. She's helping people. And she can only get you to a 680. Meanwhile, Karen, who never fixed her credit, they got one credit card or $500. Don't ever use it, but she got an 800. How, Sway? The game is rigged. The game is rigged. Credit gives you access to money. Okay? Access to money gives you leverage in the market to start a business, do this, do that, boom, boom, boom. It's rigged. 100%.
When a company has a good credit standing and Wall Street thinks that the company can make their debt payments, they're called investment grade bonds. And there's the opposite. If a company looks like they're potentially unable to repay those debts, that's a high yield bond, also known as a junk bond.
Corporate health right now is good. And as long as corporate health stays good, then the state of the debt markets stays good. When corporate health goes south, the bond market goes south. The bond market is bigger than the stock market by
The bond market is bigger than the stock market by multiples. So when y'all see the stock market going up and down, there's nothing compared to the underbelly of the debt that's really in the market, the money that's truly being circulated. Oh, everybody on Robinhood think they doing something. There's nothing compared to this bond market. The stock market crash ain't got nothing on a bond market crash. Nothing. This is a critical component of understanding of abatya, debt, usury, diverse measures and weights. Okay? False balances, unrighteous dealings, and riches gotten by deceit. This is going to play into how they're going to lead into the MOTB systems, and we're going to talk about that. But I wanted to lead in with this, create a strong foundational understanding, and then we can talk about the next stuff.
So when the bond market blows a gasket, the damages are much worse for the economy.
Here's what's happening now.
In the corporate bond market, we're seeing companies borrow, issue debt fairly consistently.
And one of the reasons why it's not out in the forefront more is simply because right now the corporate debt picture looks pretty good.
That's because interest rates remain so low, and that lowers the cost of borrowing money.
Companies would rather use cheap debt than to dip into their own cash piles.
And the pandemic is only part of the story.
Corporations in the U.S. have been on a corporate debt accumulation binge for most of the past 10 or 12 years. It's come as interest rates have stayed low. This would trace back to really the financial crisis.
Everywhere you look, the color is red.
2008.
Right. So I want to make sure everybody understand this. Cheap debt is attractive. So let's say your corporation is valued at $1 million, and so the Fed says, "Oh, you valued at $1 million. Well, let's say you want to expand your company. So you saying, man, I need about 250,000. Are you gonna spend 250,000 of your $1 million so you be down to 750,000, or you could get a $250,000 loan at 1.3% interest? Nigga, hell yeah, give me that loan, 1.3%. Yes, give me that loan. Then you can keep your $1 million, get the loan, expand your business, make more money, just pay back the loan. They was doing this because the Fed was keeping the interest rate so low and it was so cheap to get debt. But the Fed was putting everybody in the okie doke. You understand? Put con in the comment board if that makes sense. Require quorum, you can interrupt me at any point. Okay?
Fed is take their benchmark short-term borrowing rate down to zero. Companies just decide, we're going to go out and take advantage of this.
You see companies being very opportunistic. And it's great during periods like we are now where things are great. It feels like the economy is starting to pick up, vaccine distributions. But sometimes companies can get reckless. Sometimes what will happen are these companies do get downgraded. And then they cross over from this bucket, from investment grade to the lower quality high yield area. You're either in one of these two buckets. There's nothing in between.
Right now, there's a ton of companies right at the edge of that investment grade cliff.
So when bonds are downgraded from investment grade to high yield, it almost falls off a cliff, meaning there's a lot of selling pressure that takes place. Asset managers can't hold these bonds because it's crossing over. And so you'll have this unique opportunity set where managers will force sell.
there was a big concern about what we call in the bond market fallen angels, which is basically a company that had been fairly investment grade. Those companies get downgraded.
And in 2020, rating companies downgraded several of these fallen angel companies.
Right. So now you have a company that's been issuing out all these bonds, getting all these bonds, and something happens in the market, like a rate hike or something happens to where now they got downgraded to say, man, we don't think you good. We don't think you can pay us. Look, man, give me my money back, bro. Give me my money back, Smokey. And so Smokey rolled up the big worm. What did Smokey do when he rolled up the big worm? He had that $20, 10, 40, 60, 80, 100. He turned it around. 120. Smokey, that's $100. Stop playing with me, Smokey. That's what these corporations are doing. They ain't got it. They was teeter-tottering. But they done smoked up all the stash. They done smoked up all the stuff. Okay? They wasn't good for it. They wasn't going out there and flipping the talent, so to speak. Okay?
50 companies were downgraded last year alone for over $200 billion in debt.
Bro, 50 companies. 50. That's a lot. $200 billion.
Like Macy's, Ford, and Occidental.
Normally, it's a handful of companies that are downgraded each year with 40 to 50 billion in debt that's downgraded. So that puts some context. That's a very unusually high number.
Even during the pandemic era, the situation has not deteriorated anywhere near what some folks in fiscal and regulatory areas thought.
You've seen relatively significantly fewer defaults than we expected.
I mean, goodness gracious, you can tell that he goes to them Illuminati parties. Look at him. You know he be at that Illuminati party, man, with that stupid grin on his face, walking around, looking at people in their eyes hella hard. Look at him. Ugh.
Significantly fewer defaults than we expected.
When the pandemic struck, the Fed announced that part of its monetary policy actions would include buying up corporate bonds, which floods the market with more liquidity and keeps the quote "too big to fail" banks stable during a time of crisis.
The amount of bonds that the Fed actually purchased was very small versus what they could, which meant just the Fed coming out, announcing it, setting it up, doing a little bit was more validating to the market than the actual desire to buy everything.
Despite trillions and trillions in U.S. corporate debt, you could say the potential bubble is benign. For now.
None of these things have been a big problem so far, so it tends to make the market more and more sanguine about the state of corporate debt. But there are issues, and one of those issues is what happens if things change.
There are a few things that can make this massive amount of debt a problem.
Now, there are a number of factors out in the marketplace right now and in the economy that could generate higher inflation.
Inflation is basically how much bang you get for your buck. When prices of goods and services go higher, the purchasing power of a dollar lowers.
Now, so this was in March 12, 2021. What they're about to explain to you is exactly what's happening. And it's not a collapse. It's a forced demolition. It's a systematic demolition of the economy. Okay? That's why they're killing crops and killing cattle. That's why the supply chains being all jacked up on purpose. That's why they're going to be doing the rolling blackouts. It's a forced demolition to create higher inflation as they increase interest rates to squeeze out everybody that's in a bad position, teeter-tottering, and they're going to buy them up cheap.
If the U.S. economy sees a lot of inflation, or if consumers start spending a lot more, then interest rates may go up.
Which, of course, makes that debt more expensive.
And a lot of people are actually saving tons of cash right now.
No, they're not. Savings right now is at an all-time low. People are saving only at 4% now. The report just came out that savings at an all-time low.
Money starts to get put to work. It creates price pressures in the pipeline. as those price pressures get built up, the Fed's got to come in and combat that. And the way they combat that is by raising interest rates. Even a 100 or 150 basis point interest rate could spell doom for a company that's really living on the edge. So
You see that? And so we've already gone up 100 points. And they're talking about doing even more. They did 25 basis points earlier this year, and then now they're going to do 75. And they said a couple more rate hikes is going to happen before the year ends. So the corporations, which is a whole bunch. So I'm talking about name brands that you know and you shop with. A lot of these corporations like Starbucks and that you just everyday shopping, you think they good. They broke in a hub. A lot of the banks that we go to, which is what we're going to talk about, they're over leveraged in the market with debt. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, okay? A lot of these places where people are holding their money, they're over leveraged in the market. So as the Fed increases these interest rates and their rating goes and these corporations' rating gets affected by it, their access to debt decreases. They can't pay their payments. They default and go bankrupt. When they default and go bankrupt, whoever's holding the bag in those corporations, you just through. You're finished.
So what happens if the economic conditions continue to deteriorate? What happens if interest rates start to go up? That interest rates going up is the most important issue at this point because you have what we call zombie companies.
We have zombie companies, and this is where I'm going to transition over to Required Quam. He's going to go and talk about how this is leading us into a whole new global reset system and some of the things that they can do out there. Okay, you have zombie corporations. Pay attention.
Zombie companies are companies that are drowning in debt, but not so much that they'll default on their loans. These companies are doing just enough to skate by. It's like being only able to make interest payments on your credit card bill or on your student loans.
Yep.
We've got a lot of zombies.
Most people are living like a zombie. You just living check to check. A lot of major corporations and banks are just living check to check. Check to check. Every quarter, they're like, woo, nigga, we made it. Okay?
Zombie companies that are still alive that shouldn't be alive right now.
It's actually across the board until where you're finding zombie companies.
It could be a problem in the future.
It's a future problem because these companies ultimately put a strain on economic growth because they're only making interest payments. They're not investing in their businesses or employees.
Yeah, what's next? That's a great question.
When you think about all that debt that's being out there in the pipeline, what if something goes wrong? What if rates start to go up? What happens? It's a daunting thought.
You have companies borrowing money at all-time highs. Can they pay it back? And so as an investment grade manager, we're always looking to see which of those companies can. Last thing you want is companies just going bankrupt or defaulting.
For now, the Fed isn't going to raise interest rates anytime soon.
Boom. You see how she said that? For now, the Fed won't raise interest rates anytime soon. This was March 12 of 2021. She didn't know what the hell she was talking about. 1 year later. Damn.
Damn. It's crazy, man.
You get overconfident and you just think, the Fed's not going to raise rates. That's going to stay cheap. This is sustainable. This game can go on forever. Think about playing a game of Jenga, and you just kind of pull that one little thing out there. It's like, okay, we're still standing, and you just keep pulling things out, and you never know where that thing is going to get pulled out, where it's going to bring the whole thing down and everything.
Oh, they do know.
It's a bad thing.
Exactly. And that's the key. They do know. They do know. You see? So I hope that kind of opened up brothers and sisters' eyes on the state of the market and what with these Fed rate hikes in the underbelly of what's been really going on and how it really affects everything. Okay? Because it's really a daunting thing. Okay? So Brother Ariel put Zephaniah 1:10, and it shall come to pass that in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be a noise of a cry from the fish gate and a howling from the second and great crashing from the hills. And hey, man, and we're going to see it. We're going to see it, man. We go skip down to that was verse 10, verse 11. How ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, and all that bear silver are cut off, man. So major investing and everything like that is teeter-tottering. It's teeter-tottering.
If you look at these corporations are on the ropes, but people in general are on the ropes.
That's
because
right.
even with inflation, there were people that, like the brother said, are zombie people. So when your petrol cost is going up, when your food cost is growing up, that's putting you over the edge, all over the world. So yeah, it's crazy. Hey bro, I just sent you a link. Yeah.
Okay.
We can touch on our favorite female businesswoman, Christine Lagarde,
Okay.
and that link in the private chat.
Oh, I got it. Let me see.
Yeah,
Let me pull it up right here.
because all these central banks have pretty much done the same thing. The UK, the EU, the ECB, the Bank of England, the Federal, because they're all
Oh
owned
yeah,
by
I
the
was
same people.
watching it.
So I don't.
This goofy looking bitch.
And she a criminal. Do you know she's already been done for fraud? This is the crazy thing about Esau societies. All these people are criminals, like openly, and it's crazy.
Just too damn much.
Yeah, because we're talking about these companies, zombie companies. I guarantee you can go to any one of these zombie companies, and they've got like guys setting up their cousin as an executive, getting paid 200 grand a year to do nothing. Like the whole system is an absolute fraud. Do you know what I mean? Like people have just been living good, off that, becoming millionaires off this money by just fleecing money out. It's all a scam. Meanwhile, you're working in Walmart, just getting your little wage. These guys have been taking advantage of all this stuff.
Yeah, and they let you do something on your income taxes, and they find out about that $400 you scammed off the top.
It's peaked.
They gonna come get your ass. Okay. So let me see. You want me to play this?
Connor.
All right.
There is this graph about the balance sheet of the European Central Bank and the money that is on there now. And here it is. What I would like to show our viewers and ask the question about is, this is going over 8 trillion euros now. And isn't what you just told us about the cryptocurrencies, don't we see a gigantic bubble here on your balance sheet with the euro? And isn't this graph very nerve-wracking?
Well, I can tell you that there is 0 crypto assets in the balance sheet of the ECB.
That I know.
Point number one. Well, I just don't want it.
Hey, we gotta stop there, man. So basically, see, the crypto market is like a thing where they could point to and say, look how these people are doing all these scams and Ponzi schemes and how crazy it is. It's a bubble, it's popping, which they're the ones running it. Like the same people that are running the legacy system are running the crypto market, like exact same people. But what they're hiding from is that the legacy market is worse than the cryptocurrency market, way bigger bubble. The whole crypto market was like under 2 trillion. And then when you put in the futures and all that, yeah, it's going to bump up. But as we're going to show you, we've told you about what the stock market, that was a bubble. We're showing you the Fed balance sheet, and we've spoke about the bond market. We haven't even talked about the derivatives market. That number is gonna blow your mind away. So that's why she's like, well, we don't own no crypto, man. Shut up, man. The euro is worse than any crypto you could possibly think of.
Absolutely.
The fundamentals are gone, man. They're printing that thing to infinity.
Yeah.
Go on, Art. Go on.
You have to think in terms of counterfactual. If we had not decided on March 18th, when we put together the pandemic emergency program and then subsequently increased the volume of commitment that we made to the European Union economies, we would be in a devastated situation. So I don't regret any of that move that we took on that day, which was 4 months into my job, to significantly increase the size of the balance sheet, because that's all we had. Otherwise, the economy would have collapsed, and it would have been even accelerated by a financial crisis.
It had to do it was the COVID crisis. You're saying that's what you needed to do, but how do you get it?
It will come. It will come.
It will come.
In due course. Yeah.
How?
In due course, it will come.
Yeah. But do you sleep at night when you see this?
Yeah, look at that balance sheet. Look. Just printed money. Look at that. You know? Don't you wish your wages at your job went up like that year by year? You know?
That is a scam.
Scam likely. And she knows. Look, we're gonna crash this. It will come.
Of course, I have to sleep at night, and I have to worry every morning.
Yeah. Okay. Over here. I was wondering.
Right.
Do you
So
Uh,
what did I have? What did I have? Hold on. I've got what we want to move on to now, Arkham. We've spoken about the bond market. It goes even deeper now. I want to talk about the derivatives market,
kind.
because that is the real casino. So it's hard to explain this off, but we got a few clips. I'll send you a clip that probably explains it.
Do you want to share your screen, or you want me to just play it on mine?
Yeah, just play it straight from your screen. It's just,
Okay, just shoot it over, and I'll put it.
I
I'll
think
pull it up.
maybe this one. I'll put it in the. So basically, with derivatives, you got to think of it like just betting. It's a casino. They got all these different instruments, but ultimately it's betting. So as we've seen, you got these corporations and people, the housing market, all this debt that's running around. What they do is they bet on that debt. People take bets on whether that debt's going to get paid or whatever the case may be, or they insure the debt. And so when everything's fine and no one's defaulting, and you don't have a massive amount of companies like we've seen defaulting on their debts, you're just constantly making premiums. You're selling those derivatives onto other people. They're just making money out of nowhere. And so they've managed to build up about 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives globally, which is enough debt to swallow the entire system completely. Like,
Absolutely.
ridiculous bubble, and no one really talks about it. So all these banks really, because of the derivatives market, are insolvent, and all you need to do to trigger that is for one of these major banks to go bust. And when they go bust, it's like a domino effect, because everybody is exposed to each other's debt. The whole
That's right.
market, it's all connected. But I'm gonna let this guy break it down, because
Yep.
he's gonna do a
They've
good
all
job.
committed whoredom. They've all committed whoredom with this system and taking it. They drank down that wine of the wrath of fornication, and economically, this abaya, this debt is a part of it now. Cry now, laugh later. Put Proverbs 21:6. The getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a vanity tossed to and fro of them that seek death. That's a bad scripture, man. That is a bad scripture. All right. It's a vanity tossed to and fro of them that seek death, man. And they're literally, and I saw somebody put Sirach 14, where it talks about who the man that's evil unto himself, to whom will he be good? Okay. I'm gonna read a couple of these scriptures real quick. Put Psalm 64:5. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. And we've seen Christine Lagarde, you see how they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. So they create these policies. They create these different ways of beguiling people, getting people locked into the system, just to set them up to control and dominate them. Okay, salvation of the elect, Psalms 10:2. The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. And that's what we're going to see at the end of the end of this thing. That's why we call it the algorithm. This is going to lead to a World War III scenario, which everything that they have stayed upon is going to basically fall down and be burnt. Okay. These are really, really good scriptures. Everybody, brothers, is putting. One more. The kingdom is within. Proverbs 4:16. For they sleep not, except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause something to fail. It's like the dude was asking, "How do you sleep at night?" I sleep good. I sleep because she knows she's accomplished a diligent search of mischief. Okay. All right, brother. I'm gonna play this clip, and just whenever you want me to stop, you let me know.
On.
Derivatives bubble wipe out the wealth of an entire nation. What are derivatives, and how can you prepare? The dictionary says derivatives are an arrangement or instrument, such as a future option or warrant, whose value derives from and is dependent on the value of an underlying asset. Now, in plain English, derivatives are, in some situations, nothing more than legalized gambling, sometimes gambling with your grandmother's pension fund. Now, there are some very legitimate uses for derivatives that are helpful to the economy. Derivatives originally were created to mitigate risk for farmers who might have a bad growing season. Now, since that time, there have been some very risky and dangerous uses for derivatives that can create billions out of thin air. Now, it's your call what you think Wall Street is most involved in. Warren Buffett said many years ago, derivatives are financial weapons of mass destruction, carrying dangers that, while now latent, are potentially lethal. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but he still uses them. He's made billions from them, but he fully understands the potential disaster they can cause. Now, for any of you that are watching that have a deeper understanding of derivatives, yes, a blanket statement saying derivatives are all bad is disingenuous, but being overly technical isn't going to help most people understand the risks we are facing today. So an overly simplistic view of the problem with derivatives is this. You and I meet on the street and I say, I bet that my neighbor, Mr. Johnson, is going to default on his mortgage. You say, you know what? Johnson owns a Bentley. He's rich. I'm going to take that bet. So you bet he'll pay his mortgage. I bet he defaults. Now, we don't even have to use our own money. We only need to put in about 2 to 10% of our total bet. And we tell each other we're good for the rest of the money. Now, picture all the neighbors betting on whether Mrs. Jones' apple tree business is going to yield fruit. Mr. Davis's hardware store down the street is going to go under.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what he's talking about. They're betting on all these companies and but we've seen how fraudulent it is. These companies are frauds. So these companies look like they're doing well. So if they look like they're doing well, people are going to pile in the bets.
Mm-hmm.
They're piling in the bets. They're betting on all these companies. They do massive leverage positions on these companies, and it pays out in the short term. But what happens when you find out that these companies are insolvent? Now you got a problem because you've only put maybe, and 10% is being nice. Some of these guys have put 1% down, and they've got multiple bets with multiple zombie companies. Some of them are actually even, this thing's so wicked that people are using bad debts as collateral to get more loans. It's crazy. It's out of control. So, man, going out, it's crazy.
That's right.
And so on and so forth. Now, our bets are not really tied to the value of anything. We're just tying it to whether it's going to rise or fall. Now, everybody makes a ton of money from this until Mr. Johnson actually loses his house. Mr. Davis's hardware store goes under, and Mrs. Jones' apple trees all perish from drought. Now, all of a sudden, these bets come due, and everyone realizes at once nobody actually has any money to cover these bets because you've only put in 2 to 10% of the bet. Now, deep down inside, we probably didn't care because the taxpayer, and that's you, is probably going to bail us out anyway. Now, if you're a U.S. taxpayer, you already owe right now about $190,000 on your share of the U.S. national debt alone, which is about $23 trillion.
So in order to make up for the debt, that the national debt, everybody needs to put $190,000 in the pot. Yeah, right.
Now, if you think $23 trillion is a lot of money, the derivatives market, some people suggest, is as high as $1.4 quadrillion. That's actually 10 times the size of the entire global economy combined. And that's fine as long as the system keeps working as it should. But what happens if something goes wrong? Back in 2008, the collapse, most people think that was a housing bubble. Now, the reality is nobody actually knows what exactly caused the crisis, but ask yourself this. What do you think subprime mortgage-backed securities are? You probably heard that spoken of quite frequently. They are derivatives, okay? So the bank lends money to a home buyer. The bank sells the mortgage to Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae sells that mortgage in secondary markets. The hedge fund splits up that mortgage-backed security into higher and lower risk portions and sells it. So you get higher interest if you bet on riskier mortgages or parts of mortgages that are further down the mortgage term. Now, this is all fun until the day people can't pay their mortgages. Then we have the collapse where the taxpayer, and that's you, bail out the big banks as a reward for these enormous risks and bets that they took that made them billions because of that heavy risk. Now, I guess really it's not that risky, though, when you know someone else is going to bail you out. But surely, after this horrible collapse, people losing their houses, just complete
so
destruction, they fixed everything, right, and put in some regulations. Absolutely.
Yes,
so
sir.
basically, just what he's talking about there, what happened in 2008, what was it, Lehman Brothers, or one of them guys? And so you had this situation where, Esau probably just made a phone call and made it happen anyway, but you had these banks that they were collapsing. Now, these banks were called too big to fail. And the reason they were too big to fail is because the entire banking industry is all connected. They are all connected. If one falls, literally they all fall. That's how it works because of what he explained, the way they chop up the products and then sell it on, and another person selling it on, and you got 10 different people insuring it and reinsurance. It's a huge mess when you really break it down. So that's why they were like, if we let Lehman Brothers, and I think was it Wells Fargo as well? So one of them two. They said if we let these guys go down, basically the contagion will be like a house of dominoes, and all these other banks will go down with them. So they're too big to fail. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take taxpayer money. We're going to take your money, right? And we're going to give it to these banks. So these dudes were running a casino, making money. They lost. And instead of paying for their losses out of their own pockets, because there's no way they could have, they let the taxpayer do it. So basically, the government borrowed money from the central bank to pay these guys off, right? Now, what happened and what he's going to explain is after that, you'd think they'll ban these banks from being over leveraged. You can't be making bets the way. No, they didn't do that. They were still allowed to continue the casino. The difference being now is that both the European Union and America and all these countries around the world, they put in new legislations where they will no longer do bailouts. They will no longer bail out these failing banks. What they will do is something called a bail-in. So what they did was, most people don't understand that when you put your money in a bank, you are now an unsecured creditor to that bank, meaning your money, you're agreeing for the bank to basically gamble with your money. And if the bank becomes insolvent, your money is going to go towards paying for those debts.
Yep. Look at this. True.
And this is the next. This is what they're preparing to happen, and it's happening bit by bit. So the interest rates are going up. The bond market's going to collapse. As more and more people are foreclosing on their houses, more and more businesses are defaulting. That leads to banks becoming insolvent, because it's their debt. Once these banks become insolvent, then who's going to pay for that? The people.
The people are going to pay for it.
You got your money in Barclays, you got money in Bank of America. You're going to go into your bank account one day, try to access your online banking, You're going to try to send some money and they're going to be like, you're not allowed to do any transactions right now. And it's literally going to happen overnight. Bank is currently insolvent. You can't move money. And then that's going to be like a contagion, because if they're doing that, then what's the first thing you're going to do if you've got money in another bank? You're going to try and move that money. And then it becomes a domino effect of bank runs. Systemic collapse. And this won't just happen in America, because we're in a global system. This affects every bank in the world because they're all tied together. They've all committed the fornication. Every single last one of them, from China to America. That's why they were so worried about the Evergrande housing bubble collapsing, because they're all invested. All right. We could, I think there's a bit more on that, and then I've got a clip on the bail-ins, and that'll just explain it for brothers.
Absolutely not.
And you can go ahead and send that clip.
Yeah.
Reforms were attempted by Obama back then. The banks fought against this tooth and nail, and they basically won. Not only did the CEOs responsible for all this stuff not go to jail, the industry sued anyone who was trying to regulate them. They lobbied. They used every trick at their disposal to circumvent these regulations, to get back to these boom days. And today, nothing has changed. Arguably, it is worse. Now, the top 6 banks, remember those that were too big to fail? They now account for 2/3 of the entire banking industry. Adjustable rate mortgages, you probably heard a lot of that back in 2008. It was another big contributor to the collapse. They're now just as popular as they were back in 2008.
Bro, so they still doing the same thing. That's the definition of insanity. The top 6 banks account for 2/3 of the holdings, man. And that's probably gonna be shrank down even more as well. It's crazy.
And those adjustable mortgages, here in the UK, every time they put those interest rates up, the mortgage interest rates goes up. Ridiculous. And then so people can't pay their mortgages. They're gonna have to, give it up. It's crazy.
Finished.
Rogue trading, huge problem in 2008. It's still going on, and banks are losing billions on risky derivative bets that management apparently doesn't even know is going on. Last year, Deutsche Bank, they laid off 18,000 people. They had an estimated $49 trillion in exposures to derivatives. Now, by the way, JP Morgan,
49 trillion, bro. Look at this. This is in 2020, March. You don't think it's worse now? Guarantee you it is.
Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Citigroup. That's it. They go down. You will own nothing and love it, mate.
Love it. That's what's coming.
in derivatives, Citigroup, 47 trillion, Goldman Sachs, 42 trillion. Now, you might not have heard of Deutsche Bank, but you should know that if this bank fails, and it is struggling right now, laying off tens of thousands of people, doing major restructuring. Part of that restructuring is trying to sell off some of these useless, toxic derivatives that nobody wants. Now, if it fails, the interconnectedness between all global banks will quite possibly set a domino effect throughout the entire world. Now, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, says Deutsche Bank poses a greater threat to global financial stability than any other bank. And they said this back when Deutsche Bank was in much better financial shape. So nobody really knows what's going to start the next recession, but derivatives could be a big part of the problem. The good news is that if you're prepared, recessions are fantastic opportunities. We just uploaded a video on recession.
All right.
Man, you know, buy my new packet.
God. Right. So this they're not really talking about that whole situation, and they're not warning people. And so you got a situation now where a lot of people, they're selling their stocks through fear, and they're putting all their money in the bank. Cash is king. That's what they're saying right now. Cash is king. The dollar's on its way up. The dollars
Yep.
are actually up. The DXY is up. Can you believe it?
Yep.
The DXY is on its way up. Everyone's moving their money into the bank. It's a safe haven. Interest rates are going up. Save your money. Put your money in the bank now.
Yep.
Not knowing that the bank is the worst place to have your wealth right now, because they are through. So
Yep.
this I think this guy's gonna explain it real short and sweet, because this is where we're gonna get to, and this is gonna matter when it comes to the MOTB, because this is how they're gonna get people to sign on to the new system. Because can you imagine what happens when you got millionaires, people with millions in the bank, and they have to take that phone call saying they no longer have that money?
Yep. When they go to the they go to the store, they go to swipe, and they're saying decline. It's impossible. It's impossible. Check it again. Do you know who I am?
Broke.
This is ridiculous. I want to talk to your manager.
Yep. It's
And
gonna
then they
be
go to call their
chaos.
bank, see what's going on with their card, and they say, I'm sorry. We're sorry, Mr. Johnson. They probably won't even answer the phone.
Yeah, they that's gonna be they ain't, people are gonna go crazy. But that's the problem. And the solution is gonna have to be this new system, because the old system finished.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Real quick. People they lighten up the comment board. What we got? That's right. Yep, corporations are buying homes. But really it's not even the corporations, it's really the elite using the corporations to buy the homes. Yep. GMS desire the truth for Sirach 12 and 6. The Most High hated sinners and will repay vengeance unto the ungodly, and keepeth them against the mighty day for their punishment. Kind. Let's see. Skip down. That was a good one. See. Adam Nana put Isaiah 23:11. He stretched out his hand over the sea. He shook the kingdoms. The Lord hath given a commandment against the merchant city to destroy the strongholds thereof. That's right. We see this, man. We see this. Okay. Yeah, there's so many scriptures on here, man. Brothers is putting up. Y'all just gonna have to keep up. Okay. We'll be here all day. We're already 90 minutes in. Let me keep the party rolling. I'm gonna play this.
There has grown in the last decade or so a kind of security called a derivative. There are 1.2 quadrillion dollars worth of derivatives in banks on the planet. Most of these derivatives, these securities, are bets on the direction of interest rates. That's all they are. B of A says the interest rate on Greek bonds is going up. Deutsche Bank says they're going down. They bet. That bet becomes a security. People bet on those bets. People bet on their bets, and there's this pyramid of these Vegas-like securities. I think somebody's going to stick a bubble in that world.
You mean a pin in the bubble, right? Yeah.
A pin in the bubble. Thank you. There are $227 trillion worth of derivatives in the major New York banks. The godfather of the global financial mafia, the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, who basically rules banking on this planet, basically structured.
For those who are nerdy enough, go look up the Bank of International Settlements. They're like the bank of the banks. All right? They're a bank of the banks.
Something to protect the banks from being taken down by derivatives exposure, and that's called bail-in. Bail-in means that if a bank is troubled and going bankrupt, they have the right to take your deposits and convert it to bank stock. Take your deposits and convert it to bank stock.
So if you have money in the bank, the bank can just take it and say, instead of your deposit account, you now own stock in our bank.
in our failing bank.
in our failing bank. Yeah, even if you didn't want to buy the stock in their failing bank.
That's right. Yeah. So that's official policy in the EU. Canada adopted the policy a couple of years ago. And when you read Dodd-Frank bill, it permits that in the United States. There's actually a memo online. People could go find it, written by the FDIC and the Bank of England jointly, that explains how bail-in policy would work here.
Wow.
So I just, I tell your listeners, make sure you're in a strong bank.
So do y'all understand what this man is telling you? That they've passed laws, an unrighteous decree. And I saw someone put this up earlier. If somebody can repost it, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and righteous grievousness, which they have prescribed. Look, if you got, let's say you got $2 million in the bank. You got, your regular banking account. You might keep a couple $100,000 in there, and then you got, $1.7 million in some type of savings account or whatever, CD, whatever in the bank. And with the bond market collapsing, which leads to extensive derivative bubble pop, which is very much inevitable in this economy. The banks that you hold your money in fail overnight, like we ain't got it, player. They can just take your $2 million that you have in the bank and say, you now own $2 million worth of Deutsche Bank stock or Citigroup stock or Bank of America stock now. You don't have $2 million no more. You got just it gets converted into whatever type of stock. A stock that most likely will be plummeting fast because the bank defaulted. Now you just own stock. You don't have cash no more. That's what a bail-in is. They just take your money and give you a stock credit. So you basically forced to bail in a failing financial institution that promised to take care of your money. Okay. Do you have a point you want to make, Required Kwam?
Yeah, so that that leads into that. I mean, that's just gonna mess everybody up, but it also messes up the rich, because the one thing that the rich kind of have over, and by rich, I'm talking about people. I'm not talking about the super elites. They're beyond rich. I'm talking about your, like the brother spoke about, your certain basketballers, CEOs, people
Business
earning
owners.
decent money.
Yeah.
They have, the difference between them and the average person is the money they have in the bank. They have other assets which are getting killed right now, the stocks and all that crap, 401ks all getting destroyed. But what they do have is disposable income. They have money they got in the bank that they can use at any time. If they needed to leave the country, they need to do something, they need to fix the car, pay for extra petrol prices. Inflation doesn't really affect the rich as much because they've got the disposable income to meet those extra costs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When you got $1 million in the bank right now, it doesn't matter to you that petrol's gone up like $2-3. That's not really, that doesn't affect you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you spend $30,000 on prostitutes. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So then what they want to do is, how do you get these rich people under control? Well, you take away the most important thing they have, which is that disposable income. And that's how you end up seeing a rich person in the line next to a poor person getting ready to take that chip, because they need to eat, because they're almost pretty much in the same boat now. And a lot of people are going to commit suicide, man, when this thing goes down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they work for all their life. They get proud when they see them zeros in the account, but all they're going to see is zero.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read this in Revelation 13 and 16. He says he calls of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Right? He said all. And when the WEF said that you will own nothing and love it, he wasn't just talking about poor people. He was talking about these rich people as well, because not everyone is part of the elite. There are people out there with tens of millions of pounds and dollars. They're not in the elite. They just have a position in society. and they make money. Like they don't get a phone call before the market crashes. They're not gonna get a phone call. Yo, by the way, next week we're gonna, that money you got in the bank, I suggest you move it because we're about to belly that. They won't get that phone call. This is Revelation 13:17 says that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number is the name. So what you're seeing happening right now is they have an infrastructure which they've built. You got the new financial system and you got the old financial system, and ultimately the new financial system's really already been built. The technology and the means for the new financial system exists. However, they need to have a reason for people to go from one system to the other, to take that mark, to receive these CBDCs. Okay, the CBDCs is the new money now. We're going to have a new system. And so this is part of it, crashing the system completely, bringing everybody to their knees, bringing them to the point of crisis, where at that point, you will literally accept anything to regain any semblance of security or livelihood. They're going to take everybody out of their comfort zone, and that includes the rich. Therefore, what do the rich really take pride in? Their major assets, the 401ks, the hedge funds that and the money they got in their bank account. They're going to take that away.
God.
God.
Woo. It's going down. All right. So
they another thing they do say that there is some form of insurance for your
250.
But that only works if it's only one bank. That can't work when it's systemically all the banks.
Yep. And if you have a business you have a business account with Bank of America and you have $800,000 in there, and they say, oh, my bad, we've converted $650,000 of this over to bank stock, and we're going to issue out your $250,000 in increments. You can only have access to $25,000 per month. But we're going to give you the stock, sir. And pretty soon we're going to be rolling out don't worry, we're going to be rolling out a new system. What we're going to do is give you a central, a CBDC, a central bank, digital currency credit according to how much stock you hold. And it's fine, sir. What are you going to do?
You have to accept it.
You're going to have to. If you want to eat, he calls it all. Both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. Okay, that's what these are the type of schemes that they've put together to incrementally gobble up all wealth and all people and all nations and all things. Okay,
but it's like you were saying to me that in the midst of doing all this, it's going to be chaos.
It's going to be absolute chaos.
But that's what we've read about in Daniel's 12th chapter. We read about that in 2 Ezra 15. That's when it's really going to be craziness. What's it? 2 Ezra 15 and where we go?
I saw a brother post it.
Yeah, we could start from verse 17. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and the great tribulation. Right? Because if the whole banking system goes down, that ultimately means that until the government step in and pretty much nationalize the infrastructure and get it moving,
you're fucked.
Everything will come to a standstill.
Yep. And they've already got this on the books, people. This is already standing policy for the banks to do to you. All they need is the right type of event to set it off. And with these interest rate hikes, you see what the stock market is doing. And like we said, the stock market is just the pulse. You got a bad heart, you got high blood pressure, You know, you put the thing over your chest. That's the stock market. The veins and arteries of how this money is really being moved around. That's the bond market, this derivative market. What you really don't see. See, if these bank transactions fail, the trucks don't move. Everything is just in time shipping. You can look that up. Somebody can put just in time shipping onto the comment board. And just in time shipping has just in time bank transactions. Well, what happens if that's failing? Nothing is being moved. The world will go into absolute mayhem and chaos overnight. The Great Depression, it's nothing. It's nothing compared to what the scriptures say about Jeremiah, 30th chapter, 7th verse, Jacob's trouble. Daniel, the 12th chapter. These things are going to be coming to fruition, and it's already jumping off the page of time like we had never before seen. Worldwide mayhem, chaos, all orchestrated, all a part of the Most High's algorithm. Okay.
And you know what? It's beautiful because, you know, that during this, I got a scripture as well. This thing that happened, we all know that happened. Everybody was, you know, locked down, and then all of a sudden, like everything on TikTok, everything on social media, YouTube was all about making money. Everyone's obsessed with the bag, chasing the bag, get to the bag. And then what you're gonna find out is that the bag is gonna mean nothing in that day. You know, these people and a lot of people, they're gonna be very. I've told you, some people are gonna jump out of buildings. They sold their soul to get riches, and just like that, those riches are gonna disappear. But that's what the scripture tells you. Right, this is 1 Timothy 6:17. It says, "Charge them that are rich in this world that they be not high-minded."
What scripture you reading again?
1 Timothy 6:17.
Kind, yeah. Brother posted 6. You gonna read through 19?
Yeah.
Kind.
It says, "Charge them that are rich in the world that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches."
Yeah.
Right?
So like when we come into these times, man, don't worry about trusting in uncertain riches. Worry about trusting in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. That's going to be the stability of our times, because we see this chaos get ready to come. It should strike fear in you, but fear of the Most High, not fear of the world. You should be knowing that the Most High is faithful, and He's going to take care of you if you believe and you follow in truth and sincerity. All right, don't fear the loss in this world. Okay. So don't trust in uncertain riches. All of these fiat dollars and everything, that's uncertain riches, man. We're reading about it. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, but in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy, that they do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate.
That's right. The Most High is the one who feeds us. He's the one who clothes us. He's the one who gives us shelter. He's the one who puts us in a position to take care of ourselves, not the so-called white man and his money system. So, yeah, we're describing a downfall of this kingdom, and we're going through it, and we're in particular detail. This time we're talking about the economic, you know what I mean, with these rate hikes. But overall, we have to understand that Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is the one that's going to take care of us. Brothers are posting these scriptures, all right? Pay attention and soak in these scriptures. All right. More on that?
Yeah, it says, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. Yeah, that's it on that. Yeah.
Kind. Do you have more breakdown you want to speak on that?
No, I just wanted to just bring that out because, you know, this whole idea of chasing the bag and money and that, and a lot of these people get some money and they get proud and they think, oh, that's what it's all about. But as we're gonna see, the Lord has something in store that's gonna mess people up, man. I mean, people are gonna be real messed up. Like,
that's right, because
they worship money. You know, they literally worship money. You see your boy Polite actually got down on his hands and knees and worshiped dollars, man. You know, so the Lord's gonna show them, you know, what happens when you believe in these false idols and these false systems. Because you ask the average person, they'll tell you my money's safe in the bank.
Yeah.
That's and that's like the worst place, you know. But the money itself is garbage. The whole entire system
Hmm.
it's all corruption. You know, it's nothing more than a tool of the devil to bring in his mechanisms, man. Because doing all this fraud, at the end of the day, all he's done is built the infrastructure for his new world order. That's what all he wanted. That's what they made sure happened. So
Yep.
the MOTB is coming, and it's coming fast. And I mean, we constantly looking at what's happening, and yeah, definitely they're about to do something big. They didn't call it a great reset for no reason. Okay.
That's right. That's right. GMS Hopeful Elect put Proverbs 11:4, riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. Beautiful scripture. Beautiful scripture. Adam and I put Ecclesiastes 7:12, for wisdom is a defense and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. The knowledge of Yahweh Shem Yahushua is the key. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scripture. GMS Desiring Truth, Wisdom of Solomon 13:1. Surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of the Most High, and could not out of good things that are seen know him that is, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster. Right? So we don't want to fall into contempt with the Heavenly Father by being foolish enough to think that we got it. No, he got it through him. Okay? Proverbs 8:10, cry now, laugh later. Receive my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. This is what this is this is how it's coming, man. This is how it's coming. Did you have another point that you want to lead into, Ak?
No, but I actually do need to. I need to get ready for work.
Yes, and everybody, I want to just put this out there, man. If the water do you require corn from jumping on, as y'all know, he's over across the pond, as we say. It's early in the morning over there. It's probably 2:00 in the morning, 1:00 in the morning.
Yeah, 3 in the morning. Yeah.
3:00 in the morning, man. So the water, this brother stayed up to just do this lesson, man. We on for almost 2 hours. This brother's going straight to work. He stayed up late just to do this. The brother was researching for the last 3 days. He kind of put me on to what he wanted to go into. So the water to you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, I pray the Most High keeps you, man, awake at work and So hey, man, I appreciate you, brother. Seriously, man, I love you, bro. Water for jumping on.
Man.
Okay, so Lord willing, that was edifying, man, and y'all can take this and just continue on, man. Do you have any closing statements?
No, that's it, man. It just the scripture says wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of our time. So, when you see these things happen, just know that the MOTB, all these things, it's all prophecy happening. You don't lose your mind. You just focus in. The scripture says, be still and know that I am the Lord. So you just remember that, this is just how it's going to have to be. But the Lord said he'll be with us even unto the end of the world. So just stay faithful and move in the spirit, and we good.
Okay. Amen. With that, man, we're going to say, call halal, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Hakadosh. Double honors once again to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to all you brothers and sisters out there pushing the glory of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, in sincerity and truth. Shalom.
Shalom. Shalom.